Debbie Luffman. I'm the product director at Finisterre, and I'm delighted to be joined by sustainable fashion pioneer and founder of People Tree and Real Sustainability, plus advisor and author, Safia Minney. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me along. It's great that we managed to bring that discussion that we were having just 2 weeks ago on whether the fashion industry should declare a climate, ecological and social emergency, Debbie. And thanks so much for inviting me to come and ask some of these questions that we're asking for my new book, Regenerative Fashion, together with your customers. Some really, really hard-hitting questions. It's really good to see.
Thanks for being here. Great to have you. So as part of C7, we're going to be discussing today the intersection between sustainable fashion and the ocean and climate crisis. We've been taking questions from our community over the last week. Thanks to all of you that have got questions in. We can only tackle a few of them today, but we are planning to do a follow-up session and spend a bit more time and discussion later this year.
Great. Well, look, Debbie, I'm going to start with the first huge elephant in the room, really. The fashion and textile industry has a significant carbon footprint. Some would say as much as 10%, others would say it's around about 4%. What are Finisterre doing to reduce the impact on climate change, and what are the major challenges that you face in doing so?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, climate change is an enormous issue for the fashion and textile industry. And particularly for Finisterre brand with the ocean so close to its heart. Also, we're keenly aware of the impact on our oceans. So half of the carbon that's captured from the atmosphere goes directly into our seas. This causes warming, acidification, and it's killing marine life at an alarming rate. So it's critical that Finisterre join and align with the Paris Agreement targets to maintain temperatures below 1.5 degrees. So at the start of this year, we undertook a full company carbon footprint across scopes 1 to 3, which from a layman's point of view is really anything from the light bulbs through to factories, through to the transportation of all of our products. And once we had this information, we were able to then have a better understanding of where our biggest impacts are. 80%, a staggering 80% of our carbon footprint comes from our supply chain, and over 65% of that comes from the materials that we make. So
that's quite typical, isn't it, of most of the fashion industry, that between 80 and 90% actually is in that scope 3, the supply chain. So it's no good just serving vegan food in the canteen and people traveling to work on a bicycle. I mean, whilst that is an important cultural shift, we need to do more. So how have you been? What are the low-hanging fruit? Because clearly we can't wait 5 years for action. We need to act now, don't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you're absolutely right there, Safia. In terms of it's quite a quick fix for us to switch to renewables in terms of our HQ, in terms of our stores, our packaging. These things are quite easy fixes for us to do. The bigger impacts are felt from moving to fully recycled materials, fully renewable, investing in biomaterials. All of these things have a drastically lower footprint, as well as collaborating with our supply chain on renewable energy. So again, your sort of point, a lot of businesses will only look at their scopes 1 to 2. And it's sort of quite blindly looking at the problem. We've really got to work closely with our supply chain, our partners, transportation and distribution, and it's across the board. It's all the way through from the factory light bulbs through to consumer returns. Actually, it's really understanding and unpicking that. We're not trying to do it all overnight, so we are setting targets across the business, so all areas of the business. Really, it's KPIs for everybody to work and to improve upon. But I think really for us the big thing was actually the visibility. So you really can't improve on you can't move forward unless you know where you are today.
So you've got to map it, and then you've got to come up with your action plan. And can I ask you, what are you doing at Finisterre? This next 18 months. What are the most significant things that you're doing to cut carbon and energy use?
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say it's quite incremental. So in terms of materials, as I mentioned, so reducing blends actually is a big thing. So blends and increasing circularity. This is a key energy sector section that we're focusing on. So more localized wool, increasing recycling. So actually the more recycled fibers versus virgin, this makes a really big impact. Looking at our distribution network, so making sure we're only working with renewables. So it's not really a sort of a one, you have to look at it holistically. So it's not really one area, but it is really about working back from 2030 and saying, okay, how can we reduce that impact? But really key is what we can't reduce. So whilst our our target is about that carbon reduction, a really key initiative that we're kicking off this year is our carbon removal projects. So what we can't reduce, we will be balancing with carbon removal, and that is working with aquaculture, kelp rewilding projects. It's a really key area for us as a brand, but you know,
I hear that kelp, you can sequester 5 times more carbon in kelp than you can in regenerative organic agriculture and terrestrial carbon sequestration. So that's really interesting. Just for some of the audience, I wonder if you could explain to us, Debbie, why blends are not so good, because I think, you know, if you're not producing a product, it might be helpful for you to explain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so really the problem with blends is recyclability. So from a circular point of view, if you're making products, say like a polyester elastane, for example, a nylon elastane, that the fact that it has that content of stretch in it makes it very difficult to recycle at the end of life. Whilst the technology for recycling is not quite there from a commercial point of view, the products that we make today, we need to be thinking about the future and the recycling initiatives that are all being heavily invested worldwide at the moment. We need to make those changes today. So it's a real focus from a circular design point of view at Finisterre, is to reduce blends, particularly the natural and man-made. And we are shifting to biodegradable synthetics as well, where blends, it's a trade-off, because sometimes natural fibers work better when you put a little bit of man-made with them. But we really need to have that sort of future-proof focus on our materials.
So, I mean, what is, in your opinion, best overall for the planet? I mean, is it recycled plastics and reusing those? Because, you know, arguably we've got, you know, they're everywhere. We need to, I guess, but then at the same time, you know, organic, natural, plentifully available fibers and the livelihood component. I mean, where do you see the priorities being for Finisterre, and from your perspective, what does it look like?
Yeah, I know it's a tricky question. I think it comes back to that point of balance, and I think it's that sort of word better. So, you know, recycled polyester is better than polyester, and organic cotton is better than cotton. If you try to then sort of have a kind of a battle between recycled polyester and organic cotton, which is better, you know, the carbon footprint of cotton is lower than polyester, but the agricultural and processing of cotton is more water intensive. So, you know, what you lose for water, you might gain on energy. So again, it comes back to this sort of this balancing act and trying to make improvements along the way.
So, I mean, we you know, I become quite angry actually with this huge amount of fossil fuel generated. I mean, it must be about 80% of all fibers are still synthetics created with fossils, when we should be leaving them in the ground. Microfiber shedding with huge amounts of pollution to pristine waterways around the world. But why are we still using these high shedding microfibers in fashion? What do we need to do to make it stop?
I suppose just to go back to the sort of the point of synthetics, you know, synthetics, particularly in outdoor context, they are incredibly versatile, durable. You know, you can get you know, a very fit for purpose, a long lasting product using something like polyester and nylon. There's no real excuse for using virgin anymore. So using a recycled polyester, there's a huge resource now. You know, we know the world is full of plastic. It's not going anywhere. We're surrounded by it. So using that resource, this sort of waste as a resource, actually is a fantastic opportunity and the right move for the outdoors. So recycled synthetics, obviously, so that's some of the way to addressing. When it comes to the problem of microfiber shedding, unfortunately, it's not all about plastics, and I think the media have had a field day with sort of hating plastics, basically. And whilst microplastics and products like fleece are part of the problem, unfortunately they are not alone. So actually the seabed is covered in cotton microfibers. So it isn't just the problem of plastics, but ultimately it is bigger picture. So Finisterre is part of the Microfiber Consortium, an industry-wide consortium to take this issue seriously, and we're also supporting the Conservation X Labs Microfiber Innovation Challenge, which is all about finding geniuses, whether it's washing machines, whether it's materials and it's factories, or it's everything. We all need to work together on this issue.
So going forward, what keeps you optimistic about the future of the industry?
From a textile point of view, I think really my optimism comes from the speed of innovation. So, you know, 15 years ago, the only real sustainable textile I was aware of was organic cotton. Now, you know, whether it's biodegradable synthetics or if it's biofibers, materials from our natural world, anything's possible. And I think the supply chain are to be absolutely applauded, actually, for the speed of innovation that is coming out of textiles and textile mills at the moment. I also take a lot of solace from the demand that is coming from consumers as well. I think this is driving us in the right direction. The collaboration that I see and my colleagues see across brands, actually, particularly in the outdoor space and through the B Corp community, there's a huge amount of collaboration. You know, we are all facing the exact same challenges. We all have very similar goals. And ultimately, we're yes, some of us are, you know, we might be in business, but we're all consumers and we're all humans, you know, and a lot of us are parents and actually.
Well, we're citizens, aren't we? We're citizens first and foremost. And yeah, we're making choices with our wallets, but we're also voters and trying to build this new system that will deliver, you know, enough for 7.7 billion people on the planet. So gosh, I mean, it's going to be a really, really interesting couple of years ahead, isn't it? Because for sure, we can't wait until 2030. Every day counts, doesn't it, Debbie?
Totally. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I think we absolutely need to grab hold of the challenge ahead of us. It's not about a sort of complacency. It's not about head in the sand either. You know, I think we need to get on with it. I think there needs to be urgency. There needs to be action. But I do think, you know, a huge amount is going to be achieved through this sort of mutual understanding and collaboration, coming together to make this stuff happen. I think we need to get rid of the sort of IP on the problem. You know, we've got to get on with it. We've all got to do our part, and I just think we've got to get rid of any sort of place of cynicism. I think there's a lot of cynicism around, you know, concern about greenwashing, and I think it's not about that. It needs to be about really looking forwards, and it needs to be about action and urgency.
Great. Well, thank you so much for telling us all what Finisterre and you are up to, and yeah, all power to your elbow. It sounds like you've got a lot on your plate, and yeah, it's really great that the community are asking these really thoughtful and you know, very, very courageous questions. So thank you so much, Debbie. It's been a real pleasure to join you today.
Thanks so much, Safia. It's been an absolute pleasure as well. And thanks to everybody, as I said, and Safia said, the questions, do keep them coming in, actually, because it keeps us on our toes and it keeps us thinking, doesn't it? So yeah, thanks very much, and have a good rest of C7.